Head to a hardware store and grab a very large piece of foam board. Then find a very large piece of fabric that is even bigger than the foam board. I shopped my house and found an old curtain panel that was the perfect size. I cut the fabric ties off the top and was ready to roll. Try to get any wrinkles out of the fabric at this time. You will need a big space to work. Lay your fabric out with the print side facing down. Then place the foam board on top of the fabric with at least 2 inches of fabric on each side of the board. Starting on the short side of the foam board, wrap the fabric over the top of the board, pull it taut, and staple with a staple gun. A hand stapler will work just fine for this. Pulling the fabric taut and laying a staple. Once the short ends are stapled, go to a long side of the board. Start in the center, pull the fabric firmly, and staple. Staple this side evenly back and forth until the entire side is stapled. Repeat the same process for the fourth side. Now take a whole bunch of command strips and apply them to the back side of the board around the entire perimeter. Don't apply to the fabric, just to the board itself. Peel off the back coverings from the command strips and get ready to hang this on the wall. You can hang this either horizontally or vertically, depending on your space. The pattern on my board made it perfect for vertical hanging. You now have an enormous bulletin board to use. I'm using mine in our mudroom as our family central communication board. Hang family names with a clipboard of the daily to-do list. Pin up a calendar, family photos, small shopping bags, inspirational quotes, and fun decorative items. I hope this inspired you to take some foam board and fabric and create your own huge bulletin board.
To start this project, I have this beautiful white and blue floral fabric that I think is going to look great on the corkboard. I've gone ahead and cut a piece of fabric so that I have a smaller piece to work with. I cut it a little bit bigger than the board and will trim off the excess later. To adhere the fabric to the cork, I'm going to use a spray adhesive. The spray adhesive will keep the fabric in place and lightly stick it to the cork. Since I only have put spray adhesive in the center of the board, I'm going to now lift each side and finish putting it in place. With the fabric adhered in place now, I want to trim off the excess. I'm going to use scissors and a utility knife. I want to hide all of the raw edges of the fabric, so I grabbed some of this really pretty jute rope. Using hot glue, I'm just going to run a bead along the edge of the frame and then stick the jute rope right into place. I don't mind the faux wood frame around the cork, so I'm just going to leave that as is. I could paint it, but I kind of like it like this. At the corner, I'm just going to snip the rope and then I'm going to start a new piece to go down until I've gone all the way around the board. To finish off the board and make it look even better, I want to add these really nice burlap roses and some little loops of the same jute twine I put around the edge. They'll all be kept in place with some hot glue. I love how beautiful these roses look with the fabric. This corkboard looks so much prettier now and was so easy to give it a makeover. I hope this has inspired you to give your corkboard a makeover as well. Thank you for watching Hometalk. I'll see you next time.
Grab some pegboard hooks and shelves from your local dollar store and buy some inexpensive pegboards. Do you have leftover peel and stick wallpaper from wallpapering a wall or other project? Lay your wallpaper face down on a table and position the pegboards on the paper with a few inches of space between each pegboard. Outline each pegboard with a pencil and cut out each piece of wallpaper, including an additional inch outside the outline. With some sharp scissors, cut out the corners of the wallpaper. Peel the backing off the wallpaper and lay the pegboard face down on the sticky side of the paper. Press down firmly so you know the wallpaper is sticking. Wrap the outer edges of the wallpaper up and over the side edges of the pegboard. Take a screwdriver, pencil, or other poker-type object and poke holes through the wallpaper and into the pegboard holes. You can do this for feeling for the pegboard holes with your finger or by holding it up to the light to see the hole. Hang the pegboard with the hardware provided so it is secure on the wall. Line up with the wallpaper pattern on your wall with the covered pegboard. The hardest part is sometimes matching up the pattern on the wall, but once you find it, it is so fun to line it up and see the pegboard disappear into the matching pattern. Insert the pegboard hooks into the wallpapered pegboard to hold your keys, or hang a pegboard shelf to hold dryer sheets in your laundry room. style with pretty home decor, or use to store functional items, or both. I hope this inspired you to create some inexpensive and stylish storage using Dollar Tree pegboard supplies and leftover wallpaper.
To begin, I purchased a 36 by 48 piece of acrylic from Home Depot. To prep the piece, I covered all four corners with 2 layers of painter tape, measured up and over 1.5 inches, and marked. I then used a regular drill bit to slowly drill the hole into the acrylic, making sure not to crack it. This will come in handy later. Making a rectangle, I measured up from the bottom 2.5 inches and marked it. 6.5 inches from each side and down 8.5 inches from the top. I used painter's tape to mark these measurements. Then, measuring 5-inch strips, I marked and taped off vertical lines and repeated this step for the horizontal lines. The tape I used to make these is called charting tape, but you can use any color tape that matches your decor. After all the lines were marked, I cut the excess tape off with an X-Acto knife and removed the painter's tape. I then went outside to give my sign standoffs a coat of gold spray paint to match the rest of my calendar. While these were drying, I secured my vinyl letters to mark the days of the week to the top of my calendar. I made these with my Cricut, but you could cut your own or get a set of stickers from the craft store to spell out the days of the week. Now it's time to hang. Having a partner comes in handy to hold the calendar up, to make sure it's level, and then mark the corners where you drilled. The standoffs I ordered came with anchors and screws, so I first secured the drywall anchors to the wall, and then I drilled in the base of the standoff. Then we lifted the calendar and slid the pre-drilled holes onto the screws and secured them with the stoppers. I am thrilled with how this calendar turned out. It's a chic way to plan out the week or the month without being a total eyesore. Because it's totally customizable, you can use it in any room of your house to fit your decor. Using dry erase markers to add the dates, this is the perfect addition to my new home office. I hope this inspired you to make your own giant acrylic calendar.
We're going to paint the entire corkboard and frame. I've got a product here which is like a paint and primer all in one. So I'm using this blue tape, and all I'm doing is just protecting the edge of the frame, and I want to find my center point. So at least I have a center point to start with. Okay, now we're going to get out these really cool rollers. What I like to do is use some good old press and seal and cover. This is just a serving tray, but first we need to load our handle and load some paint into our sponge. We're using Modern Masters metallic paint. You're just going to roll back and forth through that paint and get that loaded into the sponge. Now you can grab your pattern, and you're going to put this into the outside holes. So you can either just roll it by hand and get the pattern with some paint on there. So we're going to grab our corkboard and we are just going to roll. And look how simple and fast that actually goes. So we're going to let this dry, and now we're going to dress up the frame. I'm just taping off around the parameter. This is foil adhesive, and we are going to brush this on to the complete frame. Okay, so we have our foil adhesive is completely dry. It's really, really sticky, but it's not a wet stick. So the next thing we're going to do is grab some fabulous foil, cut this in half, place this. So I've cut it long enough that I'd have strips to work with. Anywhere there's foil adhesive, it is going to grab it. And you just scrub to get the foil to transfer. Let's peek. Let's see how that transfers. And see if I can get more of a transfer. So we're going to lift this side up, and that's actually looking pretty awesome there. So here we're going to do a quick reveal. You just want to go ahead and put a top coat on there to protect. Any top coat will work. Final coat's the one we're using, and that is it. This is just a fun, simple project,
and we'll definitely give you something where you can create something custom to every room.
Today's project is going to feature this beautiful vintage shutter. We're going to put that to the side, and I'm going to pull out an ordinary canvas drop cloth. That is what we're going to be making some of our organizational pouches out of. So canvas drop cloth is great for DIY and crafting. I do recommend that you go ahead and give it a hot wash and dry so that it shrinks up. And then now it's time to measure. So I laid out my shutter and I knew exactly what size pouches I want to make. And so whatever size your shutter ends up being, just make sure you make your proper measurements and cut here. I'm using pinking shears just to kind of reduce some of the fraying. Not 100% necessary. You could use regular scissors for this step. But I'm going to get it all cut out, and I'm actually going to create 2 pouches. And then the next step after we're done cutting all this out is going to be to glue the sides together to create faux seams. Now, if you are a seamstress, you absolutely could sew this project, but I'm going to be using the Sure Bonder fabric glue sticks on a low temp glue gun. So there I'm going ahead and putting it on the sides of the pouches to glue them down. I did create a lip at the top of my pouch just for some extra strength for the fabric. I love the canvas because it's super durable, but just that added strength for since I'm going to be hanging paperwork and mail and stuff like that. Okay, so once you've got it all glued, you're actually going to flip it inside out. All right, next, like I said, we're going to pull out our shutter. It's a big one now. You may end up choosing a smaller one for your liking, but I had this beautiful French New Orleans shutter in my vintage stash, and I couldn't wait to create something with it. So I'm going to lay out my pouches. And then I have some other vintage elements that I'm going to use on this entryway piece. I have a vintage decorative molding piece at the top and a vintage mirror that I have turned into a chalkboard. Next, I'm going to grab my drill. It has a square head bit, drill bit on it right now because I'm using some pocket hole screws, which are very nice because number one, they keep you from having to make pilot holes for your drill, for your screw to go in, but they're also decorative because they're a beautiful bronze color. So I think they'll really tie into my vintage Southern kind of theme I have going here. So the most important part about screwing a screw into fabric is to keep the fabric near where your screw is going in really nice and taut. That way your fabric doesn't try to spin up into your screw. If you don't try to do this, it will try to spin up into your screw. You will see. All right, I'm just going to get the last of these screws in here on this second pocket. Like I said, it's coming together beautifully. I'm keeping my fabric kind of pulled tight. One of my pockets is a little bit deeper than the other. I did that just because I was thinking about paperwork and things like that that might be put in there that would be a little bigger. Now, I also have these beautiful antique library kind of labels. They're vintage inspired reproduction, but I just use a little hot glue to glue them on the front of each pocket. And I'm going to be able to slip a little piece of cardstock in those to change out the labels whenever I like. So that's going to be fun. Now I'm going to use those other 2 pocket hole screws that I told you I had. And I'm going to place those just in the center. And I have a little bit of hanging rope on the back of that decorative molding and on the back of that chalkboard mirror. And that's just going to be what hangs on my pocket hole screw. Next, I had these little hooks lying around, and I thought, we always have some extra keys around the house, either in a bowl or in a tray somewhere, and I thought it'd be nice to have them hanging up. So I'm just going to measure out that they're properly spaced and get those nailed in as well. I did have to drill some pilot holes for these because I was not using screws, so I'm just drilling little tiny pilot holes to let the nail go in easier. Now, these took a little persuasion to get in. I had to do some gentle yet forceful tapping, but I got all 3 of them in and they look lovely and they are holding nicely. So our design is complete. It looks amazing. I really, really, really love all the vintage elements, the repurposing, the unexpected use of the canvas drop cloth. This would look great in any home or office. So I hope you're inspired to make one of your very own.
Run down to the hardware store and grab a stick of oak. This is a 1x2 by 9 foot long. Also going to get some of these command hooks. They're great and non-permanent. I have this end piece on my cabinet on the top and the bottom, and I know there's something I can do with it. First thing I'm going to do is measure my cabinets, and I'm going to make a couple of marks at 31 inches. I'm going to cut 2 of these boards at this size. If I need to go ahead and sand the edges, I'll do that. The next 2 are going to be the top cuts, and those are going to be cut at 20 inches 3/4. I'm going to go ahead and join those up, but first I'm going to put some glue on the end. That's going to make this joint super strong. So all it takes is a little glue on the end, and then I'm going to use some brad nails. 2 of those inside will work just fine. Once I get those all done, it's a strong joint. No worries about it breaking. And I'm going to size up all 4 of them. I'm going to put a railing down the middle. I did run out of oak, so I had to use some pine wood. Once I get that done, I'm going to go up about 5.5 inches and measure across because I'm going to put a railing on. Again, I had to use some pine wood for this. And once I get that on, it just takes 1 brad nail on each side to hold it together. Now, once I got those on and it's super strong, I need to use some pre-stained wood conditioner. When you're using pine, it's a soft wood, unlike oak, which is a hardwood. When I go to stain the pine, it's going to be all blotchy. So only on the pine do I need to take this pre-stain and put it on. It doesn't take much, just 1 little dip was able to do the whole thing. Let this dry about 30 minutes and then come back and we're going to stain it. Now, my cabinets had kind of an orangey color to it, so I went with a maple look. I could have gone with pecan, but maple seems to be the closest match. I'm going to cover all the sides of the boards, make sure I get the oak and the pine and all the ends. Now it's time to hook it up, put it together. Look at that color, it matches pretty good. I'm going to use just a few of those brad nails that go through the boards and into the cabinets, and it's going to hold it on. Once I get all of those on and it's ready and adhered nice, I'm going to take those command strips. They're easy to use. You just got to peel off the back on one, put it on the hook, and then make sure it's nice and secure, and then peel off the other edge. Then you can take it and put it on the cabinet. I'm going to go ahead and put 2 of these on, and they're actually really great. They stick good. They're also removable and not permanent. Now take your family cookbook or any book that you like, put it in there. I'm going to use some of those oven mitts. That's what that railing was all about. And then I'm going to use those command strips and hooks to put on some of the utensils that I use the most. And I tell you what, this thing turned out so well, and the color matched so good, it almost looks like it was built in. I think it turned out great, and I'm actually really happy with it.
I grabbed a ladle from my kitchen and a dollar store plastic pot. We're going to start by hot gluing our ladle directly to the container. So I'm going to use my glue skillet. Feel free to use a glue gun, but I'm just going to take a scrap floral stem and apply a very generous amount of hot glue to the back side of this ladle. And then just place it right on the plastic. Now that the glue is hardened, we're going to come back in with even more hot glue on the base of our ladle. So apply a generous amount. If it drips on your tray, that is a-okay. And the bottom part is actually a cake stand that I got on clearance. So now we're going to just hold this here for a minute while it hardens up. And with this pot being lightweight plastic, it'll hold up just fine. Now we have some flowers, and you can find all sorts of flowers and greenery from nicksseasonaldecor.com. And what we're going to do is snip off each flower stem individually. So now that we've removed our flowers, what we're going to do is take them, dip them into our glue skillet, and start gluing them right to the ladle. So after dipping them in your glue skillet, apply a generous amount of hot glue, and then what you can start doing is gluing it right to the handle of your ladle. Now we still have a few flowers left from those 2 sprays we broke down, and we're just going to work them right into the ladle. So of course you can come back in with a little brick of foam, but with this being displayed in my kitchen, I don't think we need to waste any extra materials or extra money by working in any foam. The ladle does a great job of keeping the hot glue in place. So we're just going to continue filling in. Now we're going to just continue working in even more beautiful flowers. And look at how pretty this looks with the purple and different shades against the green. But let's work in a little bit more green. And feel free to use a plastic bowl that you might already have in your cupboard. So many different ways of creating this beautiful effect. But let's snip down these individually again. So I always recommend breaking apart your sprays. That way you can stretch your dollar and you're not having to use a whole bunch of sprays, which in return would cost you a ton of money. So we'll just dip these in our glue skillet and pepper them in throughout. And we'll place one more there, and our final spray we'll tuck up top. And here's how it turned out, and I think it turned out so cute. So we used a container, a green container from the dollar store, a few flowers that only cost a couple dollars, an old ladle that I've had in my kitchen for years, and I'm excited about an upgrade for that, and a clearance pie tray or cake stand, whatever you want to call it. You can use whatever container you have on hand as well. So for about $5 or $6, we created a really pretty arrangement, and I love that it looks like the flowers are spilling out of the container. Thank you all so much for watching. You can do this in any color combo, and I think it would be beautiful to work for any season and holiday as well.
I began my project by taking my drill. I just made the watering can holes on the spout a little bit larger. I took my string of fairy lights and I push them up through the opening of the spout. You're going to weave it back down, out the opening again. We're going to repeat this process. I drilled some holes in the sides just so that you could see the lights from inside the can as well. This is my flat back basket, and then this is the arrangement that I have that I stick in here every spring. So I stick one command strip on the glass on my door and then the other one on the back of the basket. I'm going to use the wreath hanger to actually hang the watering can over top of the basket, and this is the display here.
I found one of these larger ones for $2.50. We're going to be using this vinyl tablecloth. So we're just going to gather up our fabric, going to take our scissors and cut it off. I'm actually going to string 2 zip ties together, and what we're going to do is gather our fabric. So now that we have our little cluster of fabric secured, what we can do then is take our zip tie and tie it off. Cut the excess zip tie off. All I've been doing is just pulling a little bit, piece by piece, of the top until we have that nice pleating. So we're just going to snip all of that excess off, take our ribbon, I'm just going to take it and place it right here and secure it once more with a zip tie. Now it's time to add some flowers. Dip them in our glue skillet and I'm placing it on the inside of this. So now we cut off the individual leaves, and what we can do then is just poke them right in. So then we can take a few more of these wisteria stems. Now we have some of these beautiful pink roses, and here is the finished ball. You can do this in different colors for different seasons and holidays, and varied sizes for added texture.
I grabbed a scrap 4x4 from my wood pile and gave it a rough sand on all sides and edges. I evenly spaced out 18 marks, alternating on either side so the marks were staggered. I used a 3/4 inch drill bit to drill holes in each mark. I put painter's tape on the drill bit to know how far to drill for each hole, and sanded the edges of the holes, and then applied pre-stain conditioner. I used a lone sock to apply a dark brown stain of a color I had pre-mixed. While that was drying, I grabbed some white tapered candles and let them soak in very warm water, but not boiling. After 5 to 10 minutes, I used a rolling pin to roll out the middle, and then I gently twisted the candle.
Grab a long length of brown craft paper. Start by wrapping some books in a textured neutral wallpaper or thick gift wrap. With a thick marker or paint pen, write the name of each guest on top or around the plate on the paper. For a whimsical touch, outline your spoons, forks, and knives with your marker. Try sketching dinner elements onto the paper, like a bottle and a wine glass. If you are serving a certain type of cheese or appetizer, write it on the paper. To go with your mismatched plates, tuck mismatched tea towels under the plates. Grab some balloons, satin ribbon, and glue dots at your local dollar store. Measure and cut the ribbon. Blow up a whole bunch of balloons, tie them off, and add satin ribbons to the end. Cut small pieces of painter's tape. Press the top of the balloon to the tape with the attached glue dot.
Start with a piece of white poster board. I'm going to cut these in half. Using a yardstick and a pencil, I'm going to trace out my letters. So now I'm going to grab a piece of white foam board. I am going to measure out about 3.5-inch strips. Then back on my letter N, I'm going to use some hot glue, make an outline of the entire letter all the way around. I'm going to take one of those foam board strips and my craft knife, and I am going to score just one side, but I'm not going to cut all the way through the foam. Once that's done, I'm going to slowly bend at each score line. So once I have this done, I can again use hot glue and apply the border all the way around the curved number here. Now that the letters and numbers are complete, it is time to fill them in. First way is with lights to make them true marquee letters. Now to add a little color to the marquee letters, I am going to use balloons for the name. To start, I'm going to need a wood crate, and I'm going to give this a good coat of paint here. I am using a top of a desk that I am no longer using anymore. And I'm going to take my painted crate and place it bottom side down. Then I'm just going to drill some holes and add some screws. Make sure to use screws that aren't going to go all the way through the table, but are long enough to really keep it secure. Then we just flip it over and we have this low table that's going to offer some great floor seating. To make it even more cozy, I'm adding some cushions to the ground.